the last thing you care about is like some random being like, if you get an apostrophe here, it's like, dude, as long as no one's suing me, like I'm good.
It's a good day.
Hi, I'm George, the co-founder of Bluethumb, and I'm joined by my colleague Amy. Welcome to the Art in My Home podcast.
We uncover the surprising stories from the art collections of unexpected guests.
Today's guest is culture, fashion and lifestyle journalist Bianca O'Neill. She has an impressive CV that includes editor of Urban List, a lecturer at RMIT, stints at Time Out, Universal Music, EMI, Foxtel and Beat Magazine. She's currently a writer for Fashion Journal, Rolling Stone, Refinery 29, Yahoo and Broadsheet. She's spent the last 15 years writing about fashion and the arts, so it's with great pleasure that we welcome Bianca to the pod.
Welcome, Bianca.
Hi. How you going?
Good.
Good, thanks for being on. So let's start at the start. What inspired you to sort of become a journalist?
I always say to people, young people, when they ask me, what should I do with my life? I say, when you were a kid, what did you do when you were bored and had spare time and that you just really loved? And I would always go to my room and I would write. And I had my first taste of being published when I was about 7 years old. I won a poetry competition in the local paper. And it was a Father's Day poem, and my dad won a shiny pair of secateurs.
What a prize.
It wasn't a prize that I could, feasibly operate myself, so it definitely got to him, which is good. And I kind of knew I wanted to be a writer, I think, deep down, but sadly, I was very good at mathematics and science. And coming from an immigrant Italian family, my mum's side, being a writer was not a very smart thing to do. So, I kind of found myself in science, actually. I have a degree in chemical engineering, specializing in environment and energy. I did a placement with the CSIRO in astrophysics. I worked on the Parkes telescope for a while.
Whoa.
So I had this whole other, early 20s life in science and maths and engineering. And I kind of, in my honours year, or my last year, the fourth year of my degree, I was working at the sewage treatment plant in New South Wales, because I'm from Sydney. And I was just like, yeah, no, it's not my people. It's no shade to chemical engineers. Hopefully there's at least a woman out there who actually worked in it. I mean, but at the time it was the early noughties. Engineering was not a safe space for women. It wasn't a very positive environment for me. I just decided to quit it all and become a musician, which my parents were thrilled about at my graduation. So I played music for a while, and I met lots of people in the music industry and decided to go back and do my master's in media practice and journalism, which took a bit of convincing to get Sydney Uni to let me do a master's in journalism when I had absolutely zero history in it. But I simply attached my 70,000 word thesis to my application and went, I can write. I think I'll be good. While I was doing that, I used to play music around town. I've always been I played piano when I was younger. I've always been a singer, so was kind of feeling that out, songwriting and everything. And a girl I worked with, one of my housemates, she was in PR for the music industry. So I started working with PR legend Rena Ferris on things like the ARIA Awards, Good Vibrations Festival, which doesn't exist anymore, and some really amazing events as someone who had absolutely zero experience and should not have been on the red carpet accompanying Nicole Kidman. But I did, and that really was my entree into entertainment. And I guess although people know me best as a journalist, I really feel I belong in pop culture. And, I was a PR for a while with record companies. I worked on digital widgets and like the first ever kind of direct music MP3 website for Universal Music, kind of coding MySpace pages for bands and things like that, you know. So I found my way into entertainment through, ironically, my engineering background, because I could code. So that led to, you know, meeting lots of people out and about, and I decided that I wanted to get back into writing, 9 years after I kind of left school. And so, started working in, you know, did a bit of radio, did a bit of, street press, they called it in those days. I mean, Beat is still a street press now, and so is Fashion Journal. But it was a lot more popular then.
Yeah.
And kind of always did both. So I started a blog called Alphabet Pony for the real OGs out there.
Nice.
Who I think there's like maybe one or two of you.
Was that like when
Who might
Bloghouse was
actually
big
remember?
with Hype Machine, and was that around that
It
time?
was the blog moment.
Yeah,
it was amazing to
yeah,
come
I
up in
remember
that, you know, and to be working on, you know, huge artists at the same time in the record companies that I was working in on their first ever social media pages. And that's when I started my Instagram. And really that's like kind of all those people who started following me then have kind of followed me through all of these phases. It's been a really interesting space to move in, because you can, you know, go from being a music blogger to a fashion journalist to an opinions columnist to whatever, and having that space online where you can connect with people. They just want to have a conversation with you, and it doesn't really matter what it's about, to be honest.
Yeah.
So it's been really fun.
Incredible. I had no idea you started out as a rocket scientist at the CSIRO. What an incredible kind of path to where you are now. So cool. Do you still have that poem? Yeah, the first thing you won?
Oh, God, I wonder. I should ask my parents if they have it. It'd be, I'm sure it'd be trash. But it is interesting now because I'm doing a second master's. I'm in writing and publishing and looking to move more into the publishing space. I've been writing in the background, fiction in the background for a really long time. And, you know, I've just finished a novel. I'm working on a second. And I just have never felt like confident enough to go out and like approach publishers or approach agents, and I just felt I needed like a bit more education in it before I showed anyone. So I'm back at uni again, and you know, doing poetry classes and stuff like that. So it is quite a
full circle.
Full circle, yeah.
I went to your link tree, and if you printed that out, it'd be like 10 pages, 10 stories, of published work. So I feel like you probably are accomplished enough to...
Well, I mean, that's not even all of it.
Yeah,
but,
it only went back a few years. So,
it actually scares me because I feel like we've moved on from cancellation culture. I feel like we've left that behind. Thank God, because I just know there'd be articles out there that people would... You know, I was writing in like the peak of the Perez Hilton era when, you know, we were kind of like encouraged to do that crap.
To judge,
and,
I
just be
remember.
like, I mean, I used to write red carpet raps. I'm sure there was like some terrible stuff I used to write. Don't go looking.
Yeah, way back. Don't go to way
it's
back.
It's not on the link tree, don't worry.
That's not an invite.
I've been on Twitter for 17 years. I'm scared.
And no one searched George either.
Yes, there's an amazing app called Tweetaside, and you can just literally delete everything before a certain date, which I have done.
Okay,
smart.
good.
Yes.
There you go, George.
Yes.
Awesome. So we'll get into art in a sec. I just had one question about sort of journalism today, I guess. Because, you know, it's often portrayed in TV and movies as, you know, high-paced, exciting, glamorous. And I was thinking last night, you know, I watched Devil Wears Prada the other day, and, you know, there's Newsroom, Sex and the City, Spotlight, Morning Wars, a million other examples of kind of how journalism's portrayed on TV. What's it actually like?
It's interesting you say that because as a journalist, I feel like it's in fiction and like dramatic TV or scripted TV, it's portrayed as glamorous, but in reality, it's portrayed like I think we're just below lawyers as and like ticket inspectors as like the people who are the most hated in this world. Like
We're politicians.
people are always like the media, like we're all in on some big conspiracy to like I don't know be terrible at our job or something, but. Yeah, you don't make too many friends when you say, "Hi, I'm a journalist." So it's I mean, especially I was an opinions journalist for Herald Sun, so you know, it's fair to say that I've been hated for sure. So there's definitely that side. I mean, there's also different types of journalism. I've always been in like features and opinions territory. So I guess there's always been opinions in my writing. So yeah, people can get real obsessed with that stuff. And
especially
like
when they don't share your opinions, I'm sure they...
Yeah, I think it's like people take it personally.
Yeah.
They see you as saying that they're wrong or dumb or stupid or whatever. So I would say like there's that side that no one really talks about. You know, people always talk to influencers about being trolled, but I would say that journalists get it 50 times worse. And it's like I don't know, for me a personal attack, it's like whatever, someone said I'm fat. But like when someone's trying to get you fired, which has happened multiple times in my life, you know, they'll literally ring up editors and try and get me fired. So it's hard because it's like you're doing your job and probably these indications are that you're doing it well.
Yeah, you've totally poked there.
But yeah, like it's not paid well because it is fun.
Yeah. They say that about
Unfortunately.
any of the, sort of the most coveted industries, you know.
Yeah, and I think that creates its own problems because obviously people it's hard to become a career journalist because you get to a point where you hit an upper limit of how much you can get paid if you want to write still and you don't want to be in management. And so you tend to find people who want to be a career writer or career journalist, they will go freelance because it's just not otherwise. And more these days, especially with online, you're getting paid like $60K and you're working all weekend, all night. You're like constantly on staff. You're like, and you're legally responsible for, you know, defamation and all of this stuff. So, you know, you've got a lot on your shoulders. The last thing you care about is like some random being like, if you get an apostrophe here, it's like, dude, as long as no one's suing me, like I'm good.
It's a good day.
I know journalists who have been sued. Like it's a serious industry, you know.
Yeah, I got a
you
friend
have to
who's
know
a defo lawyer. Yeah.
to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are like lots of fun events and everything, but it's kind of payment for the long, hard nights.
The slog.
And you do it for the passion of it, and you do lots of like, you know, paid campaign stuff to kind of keep you going.
Keep it running. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Right? See the article?
Yeah.
We're on a podcast, so...
No one else can show
But
you.
yeah, it's, you know, Hunter S, Almost Famous. It's you're in Rolling Stone.
Well,
It's
that
amazing.
was always on the mood board.
Yeah.
Funny story, I always said that I wanted to be the editor of Rolling Stone, right? And when I was younger, one of my first editor's chairs, you can cut that out, was at the Music Network, which is an industry website, and at the time it was a magazine, music industry website and magazine at the time. And a young journalist called Poppy Reed, she worked with myself and Nathan, who was the other editor. And now she is the editor of Rolling Stone.
Oh, there you
the
go.
editor-in-chief.
Yeah.
And for probably 15 years, I had been pitching to Rolling Stone and couldn't even get an answer back. And then Poppy works for Bragg. They bought the rights to Rolling Stone in Australia, and I would have emailed her in like 3 seconds and been like, babe, do you know how long I've been wanting to write for Rolling Stone? And a woman at the helm, and like it's a struggle to get female voices in these kind of spaces.
Of course.
So
Fantastic.
you know, she's really supportive. She always lets me write about really interesting stuff, and she's got my job, but at least I'm published.
But you're in it. Yeah.
I'm in it.
I think it was Charlie Munger said, you know, as if you live long enough, most people mostly get what they deserve. And I think, you know, you've worked for 15 years and you're finally in there. You're not the editor, but it's close.
Well, it's all right. I've probably got more words in here than Poppy does, because when you're the editor, you unfortunately don't get time to write.
Could you tell us about your home? What's the decor, the vibe, the feel, what you hope people feel when they come to your house?
Well, my husband and I just bought our first house
Fantastic.
recently.
Congrats.
So we just bought a little single front in Brunswick East. And so I would say our aesthetic at the moment is in desperate need of renovation. But it's, yes, exactly.
Beyonce, she filmed in Brunswick.
Yes.
I think.
Beyonce vibes.
Yes.
Beyonce rustic.
So I would say it's hard because my husband and I have very different tastes.
Yeah.
He is a commercial architect, so he designs a lot of what I would call not art galleries, but art gallery vibes. So concrete and glass and very pared back. And I love texture and like I'm very enamored by history. So bringing our aesthetics together is a struggle. He is allergic to colour, as most architects are. So I told him he can do all the external and the structure, and I get to do all of the internal.
Cool.
So, I think I want to do a really colourful kitchen, which is really unusual, I suppose. But I think... And if we're bringing it back to art, I think people are really tempted by, if you have colourful art, to have very white walls or minimal walls because they're scared of maybe having too much colour or something like that. But I think that art just pops so much off coloured walls.
Yeah.
And I have this aversion to what I call renter's white, because I've rented for so many years. You know, I moved out when I was 18 all the way through to now I'm 41. We've been renting on and off for, 20-something years. And every rental property is painted in the same renter's white.
Yes, it
and
is.
it's just so depressing to me. And it blows my mind that people would buy their own house and paint it renter's white. I'm just like, why?
You can finally use colour.
Use whatever colour you want. Like, you can literally choose any colour. So, like, when we moved into Collingwood, the first thing I did was paint one of the circles, which is the living circle. I know this is really hard to understand. You literally can't understand the space until you get to it, but it's just it's a perfect circle, and I painted it almost black. And I did like an ash floor, and it was just like, it just gave me so many of those like parlour vibes. I had lots of ferns, lots of greenery, and you know, that kind of, I guess, decor. I mean, my husband will be appalled. I'm not great at knowing what kind of like architecture things are, but like bringing that kind of, to me, old Hollywood kind of nouveau deco like kind of vibe into that space. It was just, and like, to me, Circle said that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's what Circle said to me.
Well, deco has all those curves, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then we painted the kids' room like a eucalyptus, and we painted our room like a soft grey. And I was just like, like I'm surrounded by colour,
Yeah,
you know?
sounds amazing.
And I just can't wait to renovate our house and just be able to go like nuts.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of, we'll probably get into this, but I have a lot of poster work, obviously, because I worked in record companies. And I just love poster stuff on bright walls and like really vibrant spaces. It's just perfection to me.
I love that. Did you, on your circle walls, could you hang art? Did you have art on them, or didn't work?
We had small pieces of art, but when we bought the first Gerwin piece, we didn't quite realise how big it was. For anyone who doesn't know, he does these really surreal photography pieces. They're limited, so he'll usually do a series of 8 and only. And he makes all the costuming himself. So he doesn't show his face in any of them, and they're very like kind of cloud-like sort of structures that he dresses himself in, and they're very whimsical and colourful and surreal, I suppose. And when we were at the Ballarat Art Festival, we saw a couple of his pieces, but one of them, which I still to this day I'm like, I probably should have bought that one, is him riding a shark torpedo in this green diaphanous kind of cloud. I think it's green, yeah. And I was like, this is incredible. And, I've always really been attracted to poster art, I suppose. Like one of my first loves was Warhol, and obviously he like kind of crossed that line between advertising and art and commercialism and art, and I've always kind of enjoyed that kind of poster style aesthetic. And to me, Gerwin does that. It's probably not what he's aiming to do, but to me, that's my personal feeling. It's got that real pop aesthetic. Yeah. And it just, I just think it's actually a compliment, but I can see like, a big, it could be the cover of an album or the cover of a book or something like that, and I found him on Instagram and I messaged him and I said, I really love your work. Is it for sale? And he was like, yeah, just look through like what you like on my Instagram and tell me what you want to buy. And he did this series which was in Japan at these amazing architectural spaces. And obviously, my husband, being an architect, and also one of the buildings that was featured was a favourite of my husband's randomly.
Okay. One of his favourite Japanese
buildings.
Commercial buildings.
Yes. Well, I think it's it's a trampoline park. It's like a public trampoline park, but it looks like this UFO.
Cool.
It looks like a UFO.
We'll have to find it.
And I can show you on his Instagram. Yeah. But we decided on that one. And so we bought that. I think we were number 3 of 8. This was many, many years ago now. And he sent it to us. I asked him to sign it. He said, I usually don't sign them, but I said, can you just sign it and put the numbering on it? We'd like to have it at the bottom. We're going to get it framed. And we got it framed and we received it, and it was like half the size of our room.
Gosh.
And a curved wall.
On a curved wall. So it was huge compared to our space. But I kind of loved it. It looked incredible on the kind of black walls.
Yeah.
So graphic,
yeah. And then we ended up buying a second one in that same series about a year or 2 later. Now, I believe Gerwin works with Hermes.
Yeah, we were doing our research on him.
So, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, very.
I'm sure they're not as affordable as they were when we bought them.
I always joke with my partner.
I actually have been meaning to message him and ask him if the shark torpedo is still available. I'm sure it's not, but
we love the shark. When you mentioned Gerwin, we're like, who's this Gerwin Davis? And then that shark torpedo is fantastic. And then we saw his Hermes ads, and we're like, these are really cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
It kind of crosses the performance art photography space.
Yes.
And I just love that he makes all his own costumes. Yeah, I love it.
It's totally original.
Yeah.
I'm not a photographer or really an artist, but I was like, it's incredible he does self-portraits when he's wearing all that stuff as well. I'm like, how?
How do you direct yourself?
But anyway.
This is my best angle.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, and to go into a public space with those kind of huge outfits, it's crazy. We also had a little discussion about whether it was appropriate to put a fully grown man riding a shark torpedo into our children's bedrooms with all of the subtext of that. But
It's art.
we decided against it. So, yes.
Do you remember what the first work of art was in your collection?
I don't remember. It would probably be something my dad painted me. He would kind of dabble. There'd always be his pieces in like, you know, my nonna's house or our house. He did a lot of kind of pen ink and charcoal stuff of buildings because he, interestingly enough, dreamt of being an architect. But yeah, he used to do these very, cartoony, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Sort of pop arty.
Pop arty. Very like clean line, block colour. And kind of reminded me, actually, I went up to Goma in Brisbane a year or two ago, and they had a lot of pieces of like modernist architecture paintings it was like that sort of super modern building paintings of buildings. So that's kind of his vibe, and I mean maybe that influenced me as well for my aesthetic, what I like to look for in art. We just sold our Heathcote property. We had a property in the country, and my husband designed the house there, and it was my husband's first house that he designed because he's always worked in really big scale buildings and everything. So I asked my dad to paint me a piece of his first ever house that he designed. So that's quite special. That's in our house now. But yeah, it'd probably be something of his.
So
that's
nice.
lovely.
Is he still making art now? And
Well, I keep encouraging him, actually. He's retired from the bank.
yeah.
He was, on the trading floor in Wall Street in New York,
Yeah.
and did a lot of foreign exchange. So it was very like high paced, like very, calls at 3 a.m. kind of a life. And I keep trying to get him to retire from the business. They've got a business. And I'm like, just paint again, just go back to painting. So I guess asking him to paint this house was like my way of trying to
encouraging.
kickstart it.
Yeah.
Do you have any favourite pieces besides your dad's works? What might be some of your other favourite pieces you've got?
I've got a lot of sentimental pieces. When my husband and I got married, I hadn't met his family over in the UK. He's Irish background. His mum came here when she was about 19 and met his dad. So he's got a lot of family over in Ireland, but his aunt, she lived in France for a long time, but I think she's back in Ireland now. When we first got married, she bought us a wedding present, and she did her research and knew I was Italian background and found out that I played hockey for a really long time. And so she bought me this vintage poster. Again, it's huge. It's like probably, 1.5 meters tall.
Oh.
It's a 1950s poster of an Italian poster of the national hockey team.
Cool.
That's cool.
The national roller hockey team, and it's like in an illustrated posterized primary colors, like very cool. So that's like a really sentimental piece for me.
And did you say roller hockey or hockey?
It's roller hockey.
Wow.
I don't know why it's roller hockey.
Was it an Italian
Apparently
50s
it was a big
movement?
thing.
Wow.
It's a really cool, huge poster piece.
Yeah. And do you sort of have it framed or just on the wall?
Yes, I have all of my pieces professionally framed.
Yeah.
I always take them to get properly, even my posters, I take them to get properly archival framed.
Yeah.
And I love just being able to choose the framing. And so I got like a really thick kind of, you know, that really yellowish 1950s wood that's like real honey coloured.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I got like a really wide, thick kind of, and a nice cream border. It looks great. It's in the kitchen at the moment. And obviously, like all of the albums that I worked on when I was working in record companies, I would always take a poster. So, you know, I've got limited edition gig posters from tours I went to or I worked on. I was really disappointed. I had a roll of posters stolen from a storage cage downstairs in our old apartment, and it had a really huge Kills poster in it. And I've been probably for the last 15 years scouring eBay for this exact poster, trying to get it back.
Again, yeah.
And
People are the worst.
It's not, yeah, it wouldn't have meant anything to them. I think they would have sold it for like $20.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like for me, I can't find this exact, and I know exactly the one I want.
Was
So
it
one
first
day I'll
album,
find
Killers?
it. The Kills.
Oh, sorry,
The
Kills. Right,
yes.
right. Yeah.
It's a kind of indie band.
Yep,
but yeah, and I think what else? I've got a couple of Dad's pieces. Yeah.
And you've got 2 kids, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
4 and 2.
yeah. How do you go with art? And do you have any sculpture and like with kids? And how do you go with that? Something I'm thinking about.
We were going to buy a Troy Emery years ago now, a Troy Emery dog. And I was pregnant at the time. So it would have been 5 years ago now. And we were so close to buying it, and I just said, you know what, growy fingers, it's probably not a good idea. We'll do it later when we're...
Do they sort of have fur on them,
Yes.
the sculptures?
So they're hair, like long hair ones.
Yeah.
He does some fur ones as well,
Yeah.
but the ones that I looked at were like these long hair ones. So yeah, this is definitely the piece that I wish I'd bought and just put in storage, because now he's at the NGV and
He's massive.
yeah, so it was, you know, it was very affordable at the time and we didn't buy it, but we decided against it. We also were going to buy a limited edition Cause piece, and we decided against it again for the kids' point of view. Even we bought a Puel piece. It's very huge. I mean, I don't know why we keep buying these huge pieces of art when we have these tiny houses. I think I get enamored by very large pieces. But I mean, for her, she just genuinely doesn't do that many large pieces. And it was like just such an unusual, gorgeous piece. And I know that one day I'll have a house it'll fit in. But at the moment it's hanging in the hallway. And, you know, we just have to hang everything a bit higher than we probably would normally, because I just live in constant fear that we're going to get like some oily fingers touching it. Yeah. I mean, that's also why we professionally frame everything that we can, but we haven't framed the Puel piece because it's just on canvas and I like it better just as a canvas piece.
Was that mini Puel? Is that who it is?
No, there's a few different sisters.
Okay,
I believe this one's Jeannie Mills Puel.
Okay, yeah.
She does all of her pieces are they're like single strokes, but every stroke has like a rainbow of colours in it, and every stroke is different. So she combines different colours for literally every single stroke. Wow. I think on the piece that we have, there would be thousands of strokes on it. And the single stroke represents a seed. So these are paintings looking from top down of seeds spread out. And that's all she paints. She does different colored versions and everything. But when you get up really close, each brushstroke is filled with like 20, 25 different colors. It's incredible.
Beautiful.
And so it's hard to find these large pieces because there's so much work in it. I mean, the amount of time that's why she does smaller pieces generally. So
nice to have something like that in your house so you can kind of get lost in it and stare at it a lot.
Every time we move, because we move every 5 seconds, my husband's just like, I don't want to move the art again. I don't trust anyone.
Yeah.
So when you've done your big colourful reno and you are kind of putting your art in and putting more art in, do you think you'll have an aesthetic, like a theme, or is it just what I like at the time and it goes on the wall? Because that's me, but like some people have more structure than me.
No, I think we just buy pieces that talk to us.
Yep.
And I think there's probably some kind of something that connects them aesthetically. There has to be, right? Like things have to appeal to you because of whatever it is that's in them. But I think this is one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of too much open plan, because I think in the old days when you had individual rooms, that was a lot easier to put art into. And if you have like really diverse art like we do, they can clash. Yeah. And so I think for us it'll just be about finding spaces that we can define where those pieces fit. I don't believe in designing a house around the art though. The art will fit somewhere. Yeah. And if it doesn't, we'll hire an interior designer who'll work out how it fits in.
Make it work.
You make this work for me.
That's right. That's their job. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. I mean, I think as well when you purchase a place, which we've been privileged to do, we tend to buy a piece that kind of feels right in that space. And we've had such like differing kind of places that we've bought. So I think that's why we have quite diverse art.
Sure.
But they'll find their way together somehow, I think.
Yeah, I don't think personally anyone's art collection is cohesive. Like, I don't know how anyone collects and it all speak to each other like perfectly. I don't think it's possible.
And I'm not a huge proponent of like everything has to match.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I like clash.
Yeah.
I like unusual combinations. I like odd hangings. It doesn't bother me. It might bother other people, but for me, it's just it's a point in your life, and something that spoke to you, and I think that's more important than ensuring that like the piece over there and the piece over there match. That's not really that important to me.
You don't need to be a curator in your own home, really, do you? Like,
otherwise, you become a gallery where you just paint all the walls white and you put things up on white walls because you're too scared of like it clashing. Or you just become too scared to buy things or you buy something just because it fits in your house at that moment in time, but you're going to move maybe. I don't know. Like, do people live in the same house for the rest of their lives anymore? I feel like they don't, but, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Is there any art sitting in your shopping cart right now? Is there anything you're almost at checkout?
I've been looking at a few. I came very close to buying a piece a while ago from a girl I follow on Instagram. It's just very interesting to me. And look, there's a lot of this kind of stuff about, but I feel like Ash Holmes really, there's something different. There's an energy maybe that speaks to me, and I love that she does these really huge pieces. Again,
God.
I don't know why.
Massive.
I'm like, basically, I just like to replace walls with art.
Yeah.
And maybe I have like a deep-seated fetish for wallpaper or something.
Just like scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to be
Delusions
overwhelmed.
of grandeur
Make
in
it
my
bigger.
mind.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to earn the Saltburn Mansion one day.
You never know though. You've got to start early.
Talking about that
Just
last
have to
time,
kill a
weren't
few
we?
people.
Yeah.
And I'm good.
Get there in the end.
Yeah. And so Ash, sorry.
Ash Holmes.
Ash
yeah.
Holmes.
So
Australian, obviously.
Yeah, I think she's Australian. It's probably been on my radar. I've been following her on Instagram. I follow a few artists actually on Instagram that I keep an eye out for, and I'm looking for something really specific. Like I know what I want.
Yep.
And maybe, I've gone on their website and the piece that I want is sold. So I'm like waiting for something similar to come up again that
Yep.
is
It's
the original thing that spoke to me.
Do you like seeing the process documented if you follow artists, or it sort of you just prefer the
No, I mean,
finished?
I think the finished product, I just like to have a reaction to the piece. Like it needs to make me feel something, or even just fascination, or, speaking of the Pearl piece, like I like not knowing how she gets all those colours in a single stroke. Like I like the wonder of that.
Yeah.
And it's got a bit of magic about it for me. And I think that's the same with when I read fiction or when I, read poetry or listen to a great song. I've written fiction and I've written a song, I mean, obviously not, huge bestsellers, but I kind of know all the mechanics that go on behind it, and for me it kind of ruins it in a way, because when I read novels I often get distracted by the mechanics. I don't need that in art, I don't want to be distracted by that.
Yep.
I prefer to
Want
just
the feeling of
enjoy it, and be like, in awe of it. I firmly believe, like, whatever the intention of, any of the short stories or novels I've written, yet to be published, FYI, I let go of that the minute I publish it. And, it becomes a living thing after that. And, I think other people's interpretations are exciting and give the work life and give it meaning beyond. And I hope that that's what happens to my own pieces of art. I'm not precious like that. It doesn't bother me if someone reinterprets it in a completely different way. And I'm sure there's artists out there, I don't know, of both sides. Some who love that people get something different out of it, and some who probably hate it and think, well, that's not the original intention, Journalism is different because when
trying to
people
be specific,
misinterpret my work, I'm like, what did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong?
But no, that's really that's super interesting, and people do attach their own meanings to all sorts of art. It's nice.
And their own life story,
Yeah.
their own experience, their own trauma, their own whatever. I've got a short story I'm polishing at the moment, which is quite intimidating to release because it's trauma based. And I think it's interesting because, you get people who think that you should be really obvious and you should be really clear about what you're trying to achieve. And I wanted to purposely keep it obscure because I was like, well, I like the idea of people being able to layer on top of this with different styles of meaning, different types of meaning, and for it not to be cut and dry. Oh, this happened to me and this is how I felt. That's not interesting to me. You know what I mean? That's what I do in journalism.
Yeah.
I like that in art, you can keep things obscure and you can hide meaning and you can let people discover it over time.
Yeah. When you work for it, it lands so much harder, you know,
Yeah.
as a kind of viewer or someone consuming art. So you mentioned you're working on the short story there. So and you also mentioned a book.
I'm working on something completely different, which is kind of what they call auto fiction. So it's based on my life, but not my life in the music industry. I have been toying with a couple of ideas, and I'm working on one, which is like, you know, funny you mentioned Devil Wears Prada, because that's auto fiction. So it's like based on her life, but it's fictional for defamation purposes.
Yes.
So that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a good read. Like that's sort of that era of music in Australia. It's fascinating to me.
The early
also.
noughties. What a time.
Yeah,
I used to say to Rena Ferris, who I mentioned earlier, my first job in music, she's PR. She used to work for Sony, I believe, in the 90s. So that was like the big pop era for like one of the biggest record companies in the world. And I was just like, that must have been good. She's like, yeah. And then the money ran out.
Amazing. Well, I think we'll wrap it there.
Yeah.
It's been an amazing,
Fascinating.
great
really
chat.
fascinating, yeah.
Like, sorry if I've taken on you on a few tangents, but yeah, really, really.
I love a tangent.
No, it's been
Great to deep dive, really.
Yeah. So thank you very much for coming on.
Bianca. Thanks for
having
coming.
me.
Yeah.